And I thought, oh dear, how do I manage this? So I did not change my clothes and got into bed. In the middle of the night, I hear, and across from me is this man who's sound asleep and snoring. I reached over and I gently tapped him. He woke up and he went like that.
Welcome everyone to Music Un-Tuxed. And today I am thrilled to have my guest Adrienne Albert. Adrienne Albert is a composer based in Santa Monica, California. Adrienne and I have known each other for about 25 years now. Adrienne, you're a composer. I know you have so much history in your life. I know you from the person I met at the Chamber Music America conference
Oh
and
my gosh, that was a long time ago.
playing some of your music for violin and especially for piano trio, because I was very active in the trio back then, and also conducting some of your string orchestra works
Uh-huh.
and hearing some of your woodwind pieces as well. So, having worked with you, I realized how accessible your music is. Right off the bat, I love it. It really does invite the listener in, which a lot of times doesn't happen today. You're really breaking down the walls in classical music. If you go on Adrienne's website, read a little background. I know her as a composer, but Adrienne, you and some of the composers you've worked with, it's like a who's who. Like 20th century composers, Gunther Schuller, Philip Glass, Igor Stravinsky, of course, Leonard Bernstein.
I was 4 years old when I was doing all of that. No, just kidding. But I actually did work with Igor Stravinsky. I was the boy alto on his Mass, on the Gloria, and also the last piece that he wrote called The Owl and the Pussycat for voice and piano. I'm the voice, and Robert Kraft is the pianist. Stravinsky was in the control booth.
So what was that like having him there?
Totally intimidating, but it didn't need to be because he was very kind. In fact, I sang his four Russian songs. You'll have to excuse me, I no longer sing. My voice is
Well,
kind
you
of,
have a beautiful voice, so
oh,
beautiful.
thank you. It's kind of cranky this morning. But anyway, yes, I sang his four Russian songs for flute, harp, guitar, and voice, and I sang them in Russian. This was before computers and everything, and so I was sent the transliteration of the Russian, and I would listen to it over and over again. And then I went to his house. He lived on Weatherly Drive in West Hollywood, right near Beverly Hills, but in West Hollywood, up in the hills.
Uh-huh.
And we sat right next to each other, and I would go, Tilim bom, Zagarielsa Koizi dom. Very good. Very good. Yeah.
No, did you know what you were saying? I mean, you knew what you were
No,
saying, but did you no, you had no idea.
no, no. I had no idea.
Uh,
I think probably back in that day, they did give me translations, but the important thing for me was that I got the pronunciation of the Russian
mhm.
properly.
Yeah.
So I don't remember.
Okay, so that was Stravinsky.
Right.
Did you get to work compositionally with him?
I was
See
not a
that?
composer at that time, although I studied the piano starting at the age of 3
Where did you grow up?
in Los Angeles.
Right? That's what I thought.
And yeah, I studied with Jacob Gimple. Some people might remember
Uh-huh.
him. And a wonderful teacher, Abi Tserko.
Oh, oh yes, of
Yeah,
course.
I
Yeah.
studied with him. And
Ah,
then I've also studied at the Aspen Music School with
uh-huh.
Joanna Groudon.
Ah,
Both my parents were professional musicians, so I was really steeped in music. I didn't have a chance. I was
you
going to be
didn't.
a musician no matter what, for
That,
better or for worse. I don't know.
I can relate to that.
I know you can. It's so true.
Just this week, I was doing a fall equinox exercise in which we release something. And I
Oh,
recognize that a lot of the way I play, my expectations about myself as a musician, and even some of my tastes, for better or for worse, like if I like something or dislike something, it really stems from my parents. I actually am striving to release a little bit of that because is that really me or is it just me spewing what my parents have said to me?
I agree with that. I was intimidated by my parents. I would sit in the living room and practice, and my mother or father was in a den over there practicing, and another one was upstairs practicing. And if I hit a wrong note, they'd come from both sides and say, "No, that was supposed to be a B flat, not an A natural." It was pretty intimidating. I hated the piano until
That's
I went to Aspen. I was away from my parents and I was practicing out in the woods and I just grew to love it.
Were you in high school at
I
that?
was in first year of college.
Okay,
I was 17.
right.
I had to stay in the underage home, right?
I had to do that.
Too. We
Yeah.
had to be in by 10 o'clock.
Awful.
It was
None of us
awful.
were. So you were a pianist at Aspen, but now also listed Leonard Bernstein, Gunther Schuller, Philip
This was
Glass.
way before. This was the beginning of my musical being.
Hmm.
I always wanted to sing, and I
Mm.
was a natural singer. I had perfect pitch, so I could basically sight read anything that was one line. I had a much harder time sight reading piano music, but I could basically sight read anything from Bach to Luigi Nono. Yeah.
Perfect pitch comes in handy for that.
It doesn't come in so handy when you become a jingle singer. When I was in New York for many years, when you're singing with a group, you have to be in tandem with the group. I have perfect pitch. The woman standing next to me also had perfect pitch, but her pitch was maybe a quarter of a tone higher than mine. That was really hard for both of us. We didn't work together very often.
What were some of the jingles?
Oh my gosh. Well,
Do
I
we
did
would we know
everything
any?
from probably. I mean, I sang on I Love New York. What a
Uh-huh.
great vacation. And then, of course, one of the last jingles I sang was Folgers. Yeah. The best part of waking up. Oh my
Wow.
gosh, my voice is cranky.
Well, you're in LA and I'm in Penn, so
Right. But you asked about Leonard
of
Bernstein.
course, because I think the world of him.
Yes, I do too. It
Tell us
was,
some Leonard Bernstein stories.
well, actually, it's quite interesting because I met Lenny through Stravinsky because I was the boy alto on Stravinsky's Mass, and the producer, Stravinsky's producer, was in the studio,
Mhm.
and his name was John McClure. And he came running out of the studio saying, "Who's that boy alto?" And it ended up that he became my husband. I
Right.
met my husband to be through Stravinsky, and that's how I met Leonard Bernstein.
Mm.
After John and I were married, we went to London, and Lenny was conducting the LSO. When we were introduced, he grabbed me and he kissed me and he said, "From now on, you're going to be Hadrian." Yeah, he was just wonderful. And as far as my working with him,
Mhm.
well, the first thing I did with him was his mass. If you remember, he wrote a mass that opened the Kennedy Center. Yes, right. Back in
Right.
1973. And a group of us recorded in the studio some of the works that were actually recorded. They weren't live on stage. And I'm the original do bing, do bang, do bong, the do bing, do bang, do bong girl.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the last thing I did with him was I don't know if you've seen the making of West Side Story, but it's a documentary in which Lenny always wanted West Side Story to be an opera.
Hmm.
And so he hired people like Jose Ferreras to be
Hmm.
Tony. And oh, what's that wonderful New New Zealand singer, the soprano? I can't remember her name. Everybody will know her.
I should know her right now.
Anyway, so I was on that. And
Mhm.
because it was videoed and it's played often on PBS,
Mhm.
people can go to PBS and see the making of West Side Story. And actually, it was the first time that Lenny had ever conducted it himself, believe it or not.
Oh,
I was the contractor of the Sharks and the Jets, you know, the backup singers. And I also sang on it.
did you know? I mean, you knew that you were doing something epic, and this will be one of the greatest musicals ever when you were working with him on this.
It's interesting you ask that question because, yes, I idolized him,
Mhm.
but work was work.
Mhm. Yeah.
You became an associate, and it was all about the work. It wasn't necessarily about, oh my God, this is Leonard Bernstein and my
Mhm.
heart is beating. It was more about making sure that everything was correct and that all of the sounds were correct and coming from everywhere.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'd like to travel on to one more of those. I want to hear about Philip Glass too.
I was contracted by a contractor to sing on the
Hmm.
album of his photographer. I have never sung so many A's in my life. It's just what, it was
Mhm.
A. I mean, he was interesting to work with. I didn't have that much interaction with him.
And your music seems to have so many different styles. I'd love to talk about you as a composer and hear about the transformations that have taken place because all the composers that I just mentioned, these 20th century icons, they're from slightly different eras of the 20th century, but they have many different styles that overlap and weave in and out, and we've all been influenced so much in many different ways. And for your music, what started you off composing? What was your inspiration? How long have you been composing?
I started composing in the mid 90s. I had just moved back from New York, where I had lived for 25 years and had that profession as a professional singer, although it started even before that when I lived in Los Angeles. So I moved back to Los Angeles and I thought, I don't really want to go back into the jingle world. I was then in my late 40s and thought I was too old. I thought maybe I wanted to score movies because the music I heard in my head was more programmatic. So I took a bunch of night classes at UCLA in composing for film scores. In the process, I realized that no, I really don't want to write for what other people want me to write. And I also felt that I was maybe too old to
Hmm.
start in a new business with people who were in their late 20s, early 30s. And I thought, I want to compose what I want to compose. Each class that I took, and my favorite class was with a guy by the name of Mark Waters, who
Hmm.
teaches now at Eastman.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. A wonderful composer,
Uh-huh.
also a terrific saxophonist. And so one of our requirements this particular week was to compose for a saxophone quartet. I wrote this piece that I called For Love. At the end of the week, the saxophone quartet came in and performed each of our works.
Hmm.
And at the end of the class, the soprano saxophonist came up to me and he said, I love this piece. Would it be all right with you if I kept it and we performed it? I said, yeah, that'd be great. And so that's sort of how my career in composing started.
Hmm.
because the saxophonist's name is Doug Masick, and
Uh-huh.
he's a master. He taught at UCLA, he taught at USC.
Mm,
He's a great saxophonist. You can look up his name. He then asked me, he said the piece shouldn't be called For the Love of Sax or whatever I called it. He said it should be Reflections. And he said, would you please do a transcription for soprano, saxophone, and piano? And he said, I want to play it at my wedding.
wow,
Yeah.
beautiful. And I do know Reflections. I love
Yeah.
that piece. Yeah, right now
Well,
you
it's
have
all also for violin.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gorgeous work. I
Thank
can
you.
I can definitely see why he'd want it at his wedding.
Yeah.
And he
Thank
played
you.
it.
He did.
Yeah.
Oh, and he also recorded it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's on one
Wonderful.
of his recordings.
So now, what, as far as how, because you have gone through a metamorphosis with your compositions too. I know you have, how many periods, like they say Beethoven with his three periods, how many periods have you had? I know you, let's say, okay, so you're, you've been composing for about 30 years, and you were probably new when I met you, because it was like the late 90s, early
Right, right,
2000s.
right,
So you're,
exactly.
and it affected me, your music, because of it has a very programmatic feel, right? Uh,
Yes, it's harmonic.
yeah.
I love melody.
Hmm.
I like interesting harmonies.
Yeah.
My music is not what they call ping ping around the room,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that you might learn at a university,
Mhm.
because I never studied composition. I'm a musician. I believe that we musicians can be composers. If you have melodies or thoughts in your head, if you write it down, it's called a composition.
Right. So many of us get intimidated to do that. Can you speak more on that? Because I think a lot of times I've had to break out of certain boxes I've felt compartmentalized in as a musician.
Mhm.
Oh, I can't do that. I'm this person or that person.
Well,
So,
Michael, I think we're our own worst enemies.
mhm.
I think we're the ones who put ourselves in boxes. When I was a jingle singer, I never talked about my classical background. Nobody knew that I worked with somebody like Stravinsky because I did not want to be put in a box. I sang everything from rock and roll to jazz. I really wanted to be a jazz singer.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I can totally see that.
always wanted to be a. And actually, when I was studying piano in Aspen, I would go to the Red Onion on
Uh-huh.
Friday nights
Yeah.
and I would sing jazz with the group.
Wow.
I
Just
almost got thrown out of the music department.
because
I
of
was,
that?
I was supposed to be home by
Right.
10 o'clock. Oh,
Well, I think so you want to be a jazz singer. I kind of wanted to be a jazz violinist as well, but then it steered a certain path. Yeah.
but I think that my music, although it's not geared toward jazz, some of my harmonies can be considered sort of jazz influenced. And I like the rhythms.
And now I think a lot of your music seems to be angled towards a social justice perspective too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of my earlier pieces was Global Warming that I composed for horn and piano. It's four movements,
Hmm.
and it was back in the early O's that I composed this piece. But
I want
yeah,
to ask you, okay, so
yeah,
the early O's, so Al Gore, did Al Gore have a little bit of an inspiration behind the title of the global warming?
could be
Yeah. And also you recently played for me a composition for choir Malala. Malala.
Malala.
Malala.
I was commissioned by the Cornell University Choir to write a piece for their choir. This is back in 2016,
Mhm.
2018, something like that, a few years ago. And the director said, I want the piece to be about something important.
Mm.
It was during that time that Malala Yousafzai was the woman who was attacked in her native land, and then she came to England and she became a speaker for women's rights. And so I thought she would be a perfect person to write a piece for. The piece happened to be for all women's choir, even though it's called the Cornell University Choir. I took some of her comments. First of all, her name, Malala, which is very musical, la 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 la. And so I used her name throughout the piece, some of her speeches.
A life like she has had and the difference that she makes in this world, how do you translate that into melody and harmonies for the programmatic sense of that? What is
Gosh,
that?
I wish we could play it.
Well, we'll
Yeah,
definitely play some.
yeah, okay,
So
good.
at this point, we're going to play
Right,
Malala, and
right,
it's a very musical name,
right.
and we're going to be hearing some of the harmonies and melodies that are kind of making this programmatic towards her venture in life.
And also rhythmic, because her name is very rhythmic. Malala,
Mm,
the accent on the middle.
yeah.
I also used interesting things which I don't know were being used during that time, but when the choir said Malala, and then they would stamp their foot. So there were different aspects of that rhythm and using the hands clapping or the feet as another rhythmic instrument. Yeah.
That's excellent. Now, I want to jump ahead. I noticed on your website, you're featuring a new work based around courage.
Ah, that was another piece that I wrote back in the early O's.
Oh,
I
okay.
originally wrote it for orchestra, and I can say now that I was recovering from breast cancer. I immediately thought of the courage that it takes for people to go through different periods of their lives when they're having specific difficulties, whether it has to do with family or health, something else that happens in their life.
Hmm.
It takes courage to go through it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's one of my better pieces. And I've now composed it. I was asked to transcribe it for wind band, and it was actually performed by well, we'll come back to that. And also, I've recently done a brass band version of it.
Mm.
So, what's the name of the famous? I should have a paper in front of me.
A,
A famous army band. It's a school.
a West Point. Or no.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It was the West Point band
Uh-huh.
that performed and recorded My Courage, the
Wow.
wind band.
And so now that's up on your website again right now.
It is.
I think it's appropriate because I think we're in a time right now where we are needing to summon some courage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We need to get all the courage we can muster and
Mhm.
speak out in whatever ways we know how to speak. In my case, it happens to be with music. Writers can do it with words, dancers can do it with movement. There are millions of ways. And
Mhm.
as long as we are not forbidden by this,
Well, I think the idea of artistic expression that we have and the abilities to make such a difference in society with whatever medium we're doing. Like you're doing a lot of that with your compositions. I want to talk about our trip that we took together. We brought a group over from the Pennsylvania Academy of Music. I know you were composing some things. We did some of your string orchestra works and we had a
you
trip.
did Boundaries,
We did boundaries, right?
which is another work that has certain influences and certain political influences.
Yeah.
I mean, we can look at it that way.
Yes. about the boundaries.
Yes.
Can you go a little deeper about that and about duration?
I suppose that boundaries indicate restrictions, whether there are restrictions in countries or whether there are restrictions within ourselves. We
Hmm.
were talking earlier about how, as children, and even now, we put the boundary on ourselves saying, oh, I can't possibly do that. Whereas if we open ourselves to possibilities, then the world is it's open to us and we're open to that world.
Hmm. And your boundaries exhibit that.
Yes, that
Mhm.
was done in a time when I was involved with a neighbor. I had recently bought a house up in the hills here, and there was a fence that intersected my property that my neighbor had put up. And when I bought the house, the real estate person said, wait a minute, that property belongs to you and not to your neighbor. So therefore, I got influenced by that boundary, right?
It's
Impacted the expansiveness of my world and restricted the boundaries of his world. Because
mm,
before he lived in mine and now he's living in his.
wow. So how did that affect your relationship with the neighbor?
Oh no, we never spoke again.
Oh, really? Oh,
No,
gee.
oh no, we never
Somehow
spoke
that
again.
sounds like a kind of an LA story or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right.
But he also had that issue with people who surrounded him. There was a friend of mine who lived below his house, and they had difficulties.
Right.
He's
Well,
gone now, so we don't need to worry about him anymore.
but we took boundaries to China with the string orchestra. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was very busy conducting the orchestra on that trip and go through. I want to hear your perspective because there were some unique things there and what you learned from going over there and kind of just allude to some of the different
Oh my gosh.
times you could.
Because I live on the left coast, closer to China, and Lancaster, Pennsylvania, I decided to go on my own about 3 days earlier than so that I had a chance to find out a little bit more about who I am in relationship to China. The pianist of your Newstead trio is Chinese.
Yeah.
He had a cousin who lives in China, and he said, oh, don't worry, she'll find you a wonderful hotel and it won't cost a lot of money. And so his cousin picked me up at the airport. And you know how people who come to the United States and everybody looks the same to them?
Right.
When I went to China, everybody looked the same to me.
Right.
And so I thought, my goodness, how am I going to recognize this person? Fortunately, she had a sign with my name on it. And so I got into her car and we're driving into Beijing, and the streets are very wide. As we get more and more into Beijing, the streets get narrower and narrower. We park in front of this hotel that has a 40-watt bulb above
Oh,
it. And it's night. We go into the hotel, and I thought, okay, I'm on my own. Can I last here? We go to look at the room, and the door opens, and it's glass.
oh no.
Oh, yeah, it's just all on the floor. I took one look. I said, I don't think I'm staying here, and turned around and walked out. That was night one. Night two, I decided to go to the Peking Opera.
Yeah.
And so I took a
Were you
cab.
were you familiar with Peking opera? Hearing it?
Never heard it before. No, never heard it
Yeah.
before. But I'm always intrigued when I go to a country where I don't understand the language or the culture. I like to involve myself in it. Anyway, I did go and I took a cab or whatever you call it there. And the guy gave me a piece of paper with the name of my hotel on it so that I would know how to get back to my hotel. And I went in and I sat down and I started listening. I sat there for about 20 minutes and I thought, I can't. I should have been able to really take it all in and appreciate the difference, but I really couldn't take it. So now I meet up with you and all of the students from the Lancaster,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania Academy of Music, and we're taking a train,
Right. I remember the train. It was
an overnight train from
to,
Beijing to where were
I
we going?
believe we were going to Lanzhou. We
All
were
right,
going, yeah, I think that was our first stop together. I'm not sure, but I believe
I
so.
believe so. And so, Chinese trains, there are three, if you remember,
Or maybe Xining. I think maybe Xining. One of those
one of those
pretty
places,
far
right?
out west.
Yeah. And so the trains, there are in the main cabins on two sides, bunks here, two and three. Because I was the composer in residence, you very gratefully put me into a smaller unit, which was four bunks. So there were two bunks here and
Mhm.
two bunks here with a door that enclosed this little cabinet, and it had a window so you could look outside and watch everything go by. In front of the window, there was something where you could pull it down, and it was like a desk. So when I went in there, I thought, oh, this is very, nobody else was in there. Then I went to the dining car and met up with you, and we had this lovely meal. When I came back at night and went into this place, here was a man asleep on this upper bunk, and over here was another man asleep, and then down below was another man asleep. And I thought, oh dear, how do I manage this? So I did not change my clothes and got into bed. In the middle of the night, I hear, and across from me is this man who's sound asleep and snoring. I reached over and I gently tapped him. He woke up and he went like that to my face. And I
Mm.
went, oh no, back to sleep.
Phew. Wow, what an experience on those overnight train rides.
We're quite something.
Quite a trip. And I want to know, having boundaries performed at some of these locations and for some of these audience, having your music received, how did you feel with that exchange?
I was really impressed. I was really taken with the quality of the musicianship.
Mhm.
And of course, you conducted,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
there was this interrelationship between the West and the East,
Mhm.
which was very nice.
Right.
Very nice. And I do remember we gave a concert up near, was it?
Tibet.
Yeah,
Right near
Tibet.
Tibet. It was right near Tibet, I believe.
It was.
Mm.
And we slept in tents. And but there was, and we had gone to a piano factory when we were in one of the cities
I
of
remember that.
China.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Mhm.
And that was an interesting experience. We were giving a concert near Tibet
An
in the
open,
mountains.
it was
Yeah,
like an open field.
everything was very green. And the morning comes, and there's a dirt road. Along the dirt road comes a white van, really
Mhm.
white against this green backdrop. The van arrives, the doors open, and out comes this pitch black piano,
Mm.
shiny like our pianos. It is so unique and so different from what we are experiencing. The Chinese who live in these areas came out of the woods because they were fascinated by this black instrument that
Yeah.
was being brought into the field, could be played. And then I think it was the flutist
Jennifer was one
and
of them.
also the clarinetist,
Doris.
Doris.
Yes.
Yes. And of course, it was Sarah. And we had a fascinating audience listening to the music there.
I wish as I said, you get so wrapped up in that performance,
And you were
hearing the audience.
conducting, right?
Yeah, I wish I would have. I think at this stage of my life now, I realize it's very important to really soak it all in, like even your surroundings and really play into them a little
Well,
much more.
I agree, but we always carry ourselves with us.
Mm.
And when we're involved in something, I think we're thinking more about what we're doing.
Right.
You were thinking about the music, you were thinking about the performance, right?
Hmm.
Whereas I was a bystander and
Hmm.
I was looking around and was observing other things that were going on rather than just focusing on the music. Yeah.
Wasn't there a composer that you did arrangements of, a famous Chinese composer? Did you do the Wang Lobin?
Yes, I
Okay.
did. Yeah, we should get that out again.
Yes, and so when you do an arrangement like that, you didn't really know who Wang Lobin was at that point,
I had no idea.
and you were asked to arrange these pieces.
Yes, trio.
Right, for the
Uh-huh.
Newstead Trio, I remember. How do you maintain a reverence for that? Did you find any difficulties in connecting with what Wang Lobin
No,
wanted? No?
no, because I listened to the harmonic structure of Chinese songs,
Mhm.
which is pretty much the same to my ears. It may sound completely different to a Chinese person. And from what I understand, I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm told that Chinese people have perfect pitch because the way their words are pronounced,
Hmm.
it's in a different tonality. It means something different.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, yeah.
But I can't imagine 1.3 billion people in China have perfect pitch. But it might be a little more prevalent
I think it probably
because of the way
is.
the language is.
Right,
Because
exactly.
hmm,
Because you grow up with it. It's in your
wow.
home. Your mother speaks to
So
it.
so do you think perfect pitch can be trained, or is it
No.
no?
At least I've been interviewed by doctors who
Hmm.
say there's a genetic strain. Um,
Okay.
my mother had perfect pitch. We'd hear a car horn outside, and she'd say, "That's an E flat," and I'd say, "No, it's not. It's an E and a D." We'd go running to the piano and check ourselves. He also told me something interesting, and it's true, that as one gets older, one loses perfect pitch.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I hear things sometimes a third higher,
Hmm. Right.
sometimes a half a step lower, but
Right.
occasionally I can get it correct, but not like I used to.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's understandable.
Yeah.
I know for me, my left ear is much, I've lost a lot of hearing in it just because of the violin. I think,
Because of the way you place the violin?
I think because of my ears right there.
Yeah.
And I've noticed when I have the phone up on one side, a phone up on the other, my right ear is definitely a lot more. But I still
But
think I can hear if I'm in tune or not. Yeah.
because, you have your instrument against, so
Right.
you have the vibrations as well as
Mhm.
the sound,
Yeah.
as the tone,
Right.
whereas your other ear is open to
Hmm.
everything. Yeah.
Right. So you were in Amsterdam last year.
I was, no, this year.
This year, okay.
Yeah, well, I
Well,
was in Amsterdam a number of years ago, back in
uh,
the 60s when I was a singer,
uh,
but I'd always wanted to go back there. And I had an opportunity for the Amsterdam Brass Quintet to premiere a piece of mine. And I thought, what a great opportunity. The performance took place in a town called Middelburg, which is about 2 hours south of Amsterdam. But I flew from LA 9 hours to Amsterdam. I spent 5 days there and I had the best time. And
mhm.
I went to the Concertgebouw, which I had gone to, 50 years ago, which was a great hall.
Right. I've
And I
heard.
heard a Shostakovich symphony, which was just phenomenal. And one of the,
I think it is his birthday today.
oh,
Is
really?
Shostakovich? I think maybe.
Oh, we should play some
Yeah, or maybe
Shostakovich.
yesterday. I know.
Could be. Happy
Yeah.
birthday,
Yeah.
Shosti.
Right.
Anyway, one of the trombonists of the Concertgebouw had performed a trombone duet of mine that I had written 2 years before for two bass trombones, and I call it Tango para dos bassos. and he had performed it in Thailand
Mm.
with another bass trombonist from the Houston Symphony. I was intrigued to meet him since I was in Amsterdam. We went out together afterwards. His name is Martin Schippers,
Mm.
a great guy and a magnificent musician. I had just written this piece for brass, right? I went south and had this piece for brass quintet performed in Middelburg. That turned out to be a wonderful experience. And I love to travel and I love to go places that are new to me
Mm.
with cultures that are different from ours. I think it's really important for Americans in particular because we're not surrounded by other countries as Europe is, you know,
Right.
and Asia and Africa.
That's so true. As far as traveling, that brings me to my next question about what you would recommend for young composers, because it seems like your traveling has had an impact and an inspiration on your music. And you also kind of came about it. It's not like you went to school for composition.
That's right.
You slipped into it out of passion. Now, what would be your advice for young composers on the horizon?
My advice to young composers, young musicians, young people who are interested in the outside world other than their own four corners, it's so important to go
Mhm.
visit different cultures. Whether it's close to you, you can go to Cuba, South America, Mexico, northern Canada, where they speak French, where we can go to Quebec.
Mhm.
And then, of course, you're much closer to Europe. So people can travel. I encourage young people, whatever their interests, to go outside of their own box and
Right.
learn how other people live. Because some people live much like we do, and other people live intense or in completely different environments and with languages that are completely foreign to us. It's important for us to broaden our horizons. I've always felt that way.
And do you feel like your music helps that to happen?
I do,
Yeah.
because going to a place that's foreign brings one into a place where you want to learn. You have to learn in order to engage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I encourage that.
That's wonderful. Do you have any projects right now on the books that you're working on that you want to tell us about?
I actually do. I have
Yeah.
a commitment to write a bass trombone work
Oh, okay.
for Martin Schippers and his associate, Thomas, and I can't think of his last name, but he's the principal trombone of the Berlin Symphony. They're going to Japan in February, and they want me to write a piece based on Japanese folk songs. And that is really difficult for me because I've never been to Japan.
Mhm. One of the pieces that I performed early on was called Japanese Gardens.
It had to do with a garden that I was developing outside my house
Got
that
it.
I called a Japanese garden. Whether, I mean, it
Right.
was rocks and stones and, plants that were unusual.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
maybe I could take that. And, yeah.
So, well, only because what I appreciate about you, Adrian, is you're not afraid to throw it out there, whether or not it's the right title. You know how people get very nitpicky and it has
Oh,
to be this
yeah.
way or that way.
I was working in my Japanese garden, and I originally wrote it for violin, cello, and piano.
Hmm.
Then I was asked to transcribe it for saxophone. I call it New York Gardens, the saxophone.
Do you have a favorite instrument that you write for?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question.
I'm
Um,
hearing a lot of wind instruments, so I'm getting a little bit jealous.
well, I think one of the reasons that I'm I'm a little hesitant about writing for a violin or string instruments. I grew up with them. Both of my parents were violinists. So I feel somewhat intimidated. And I have a hard time writing for piano too, because I'm a pianist. You would
Oh,
think it would be easy, but it's much easier for me to write for a one-line instrument.
uh-huh. You
So
have beautiful soaring melodies
oh,
too.
thank
I
you.
mean, they're very nice melodies. I would remember one piece. Is it Acadian or Arcadian?
Dreams.
Acadian Dreams.
Excuse me. It was originally written for flute, and you played it for
Yeah,
violin,
for
which is
violin.
wonderful.
Yeah, and I can walk out of a Adrienne Albert performance humming the tune, which is not always the case. It may not be the intention, but I think that is one of the trademarks of your works. And as simple as that is, I think it's wonderful.
Thank you for saying that, Michael. I do want people to come out of a concert with something of my music left with them,
Yeah.
rather than something that is what we call ping ping around the room, where you just don't, you don't hear melody. I appreciate it when people come up to me and say, "Oh, I really love that melody. Or I really love what you did with that." Yeah, it's feels good
And so, do you have ever like writer's block? Is there a
all the
composer's
time.
block all the time? What do you do about that?
Unless I come up with a name, a title, which sometimes happens. It seems the piece becomes much easier. Like my Doppler effect, which is one of my earliest pieces. I wrote it when I was in Rome, hearing ambulances go by. As they go by, they go down a half step. And I thought, oh, that would be an interesting thing for a piece. So I wrote this piece called Doppler effect. And it's probably one of my most popular pieces. I think I've written it for I don't know how many different instrumentation, and it works with every one of them. Of
Right.
course, I do change it a little bit to suit that particular instrument. Like the original is for what the Debussy trio was, which is flute, viola, and harp. So that's the original.
Yeah.
But I've written it for bass saxophone, soprano saxophone, and piano, or something in harp.
Right. Well, what's great is that you're also very flexible for the different instrumentations. Make it work. To get
Yeah.
the music out there. That's what it's all about. Get
And
the
to
music out
get
there.
people interested in music
Uh,
who love rock and roll or whatever is the popular music of the day, and that's all they hear. So to introduce them to other kinds of music. When I taught school back in the 60s, I would introduce my students to Bach through the Beatles. The Beatles were really popular, and that's how I got them interested, started getting them interested in more classical music.
I have a hard time these days trying to figure out that whole question of what is classical music, because clearly you're a composer and you're in the tradition of classical music. Look at the people that you list on your bio, I've worked with, classical musicians.
I don't
And
know
you
if
got
you
a
can
friend
hear.
back there.
I do. Katya, what are you
Oh,
doing?
Katsio wanted to be in the conversation.
Could you hear him? Could you hear
Yes,
him meow?
yes. He would, right when I was talking about classical music, Katsio
Yes,
wanted to be part of it.
he
But now,
did.
see, that brings it right home now. Are cats part of classical music?
Why not?
See, and you read a lot of tangos,
And
and
I've
you
never been to South America. And I don't know how to dance the tango. I just love the rhythm of it.
wow. So basically, yes, you do a lot of traveling, but you also travel within your music. You take,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
you use your music to,
I
it's a,
do.
that's your escape.
Yeah, I do.
Music's your, yeah.
Yeah, you're
Wow.
right.
Okay.
You're
Well,
right.
this has been wonderful.
Oh, it's been so wonderful for
Eh,
me.
Thanks
Michael,
for
it's
talking
such a
about all
pleasure.
this. It's amazing to talk with someone like you who has such a rich history and cavalier career as a musician. I really think that's a beautiful testament to you as a composer. That's great.
Thank you, Michael. I'm just now inventing a new piece called Cavalier.
There you go.